Hello everybody! So here's Linda Delir again, and I'm here to talk to you about INFP versus ISFP. So this split has been kindly requested, and therefore we're going to proceed and analyze it. So INFPs are FINESITE, whereas ISFPs are FISENITE. So, what is the difference between these two types? First of all, as always, I would like to start from the things that they have in common. And that's because those are the things that we are more used to and that tend to cause us a little bit of confusion. So the things that they have in common are introverted feeling, dominant function. What is introverted feeling? Introverted feeling is the function of depth of feeling. So every time that we're talking about introverted functions, we're talking about depth. So INFPs and ISFPs are introverted feeling, and they belong in the realm of the depth of feeling, depth of emotion, depth of feeling. It means that they are focused on the intensity of the emotion from a subjective point of view, so related to the subject. Extrovert feeling is an objective function, meaning that it's related to the object. So I'm taking the definition of subjective as related to the subject and objective as related to the object. So FE objective, introvert feeling, FI subjective. This means that INFPs and ISFPs both are extremely aware of the depth of feeling of anybody surrounding them. So to make an example, if within a room there is a sad person, someone that is having a very gloomy emotional state within them, and an INFP or an ISFP enter the room, the INFP and the ISFP are going to be aware of the emotional state, of the depth of the negative emotion within this person, and they're going to do everything in their power to lift the mood of the person by talking to them, letting them pull it out, and letting them talk about it. This modality for these two types is a non-stop, so they are introverted feeling. I'm pointing this out because introverted feeling also has another characteristic. Introverted feeling is a rational function, so it means that it is a system to categorize, so to speak, the world. I'm borrowing the word categorize because we know that the function that categorizes is introverted thinking. In this case, we're having a rational function that basically creates an image of the external world. So introverted thinking is the function that creates an objective image of the world, even though it is subjective. It's subjective from another point of view. We will talk about it in another video. But anyway, it makes a picture of reality and it elaborates it. Whereas introverted feeling makes an emotional and ethical picture of the environment from a subjective, of reality, sorry, not the environment, of reality, from a subjective point of view. So how does it work? Basically, introverted feeling is a sense of attraction, repulsion. So the introverted feeling dominant types, which are, again, INFP and ISFP, have this, live through this ability to perceive their sense of attraction or their sense of repulsion towards whatever they're faced with. So basically, their system to judge the external world is this inner sense of attraction, repulsion that they never ever switch off. That's why both INFPs and ISFPs tend to look extremely judgmental in the external world. Because if something hits on the plane of their repulsion, even though they're not going to show it explicitly, because introvert feeling is still an internal function. Even though they're not going to show it explicitly, it will show in their demeanor, it will show in the way they approach the thing. Also, ISFPs and INFPs have a tendency when they vouch their judgments of the external world, they tend to be extremely harsh and extremely to the point. And since introvert feeling has this characteristic of being subject-oriented, they're going to express their feelings in some sort of I hate it, I love it kind of way. And this I hate it, I love it is very strong, and it's perceived very strongly in the external environment when the judgment is expressed. So introvert feeling looks extremely judgmental in the dominant position in particular. But the two types have two opposite realms of application of this introvert feeling. Before we pass to that, we have to take into account that both ISFPs and INFPs are extrovert feeling ignoring. So it means that these types tend to ignore the atmosphere around them and the charge released by the emotional expression of people around them. So they tend not to take note of that. So if someone is laughing, they probably will not realize that the person is laughing unless the person is feeling inside an enormous and deep amount of joy. So they will perceive the internal joy, they will forget about the external manifestation of it, they will not notice and will ignore the external manifestation of it. This also means that for those of you who are lovers of visual typing, this also means that introvert feeling dominant types tend to lack facial expression. They can be expressive and they can become expressive if they want to for short periods of time, but they generally ignore the importance, or they avoid to place any importance whatsoever on expression of emotion. And if someone would point that out to them, they will probably just dismiss it and consider it an annoyance. So this is the first two functions, so introvert feeling dominant, extrovert feeling ignoring. The other thing that they have in common is, the other two things that they have in common are introverted thinking, role function. So it means that INFPs and ISFPs are generally not categorizing the external world according to personal categorization. So what they basically do is filter everything through this sense of attraction repulsion, and they lack the ability basically of categorizing in a different way. Like for example, one thing that TI is responsible of are systems like the MBTI, for example. The MBTI is a categorization that was created by one single person that represents a specific thing. That is something that INFPs and ISFPs are not able to do. But when you will meet an ISFP or an INFP, the first thing that you're going to see will be that they are kind of categorizing things in a way, and that's because the role function is the role that comes at play and jumps out of the blue when we first meet someone. The vulnerable function and the role function in socionics are called the superego block. And the superego block is the block of functions that we use when we are in a new situation and we first meet new people. Especially the role function, because we know that the vulnerable function is extremely difficult to use and very, very rarely applied. It's actually a very weak point of the person, and it's the point where the person is at the weakest. So back to our INFPs and ISFPs, the last trait that they have in common is extroverted thinking. So extroverted thinking is basically the organization of the external environment, mob mentality, what everybody thinks, and what the public opinion is about a specific thing. We know that extroverted thinking types base their lives on knowledge, benefit, and public opinion. So basically, INFPs and ISFPs live in their inner world and the inner depth of their personal feelings and their personal emotion, and they need and they seek public opinion and culture, and not culture meaning the population's culture, that would be extrovert feeling. I'm talking about knowledge, raw knowledge, and public opinion, raw knowledge, mob mentality. All of these things they need to be pulled out of their heads and finally be part of the external world. They admire people with the ability to materially fix things and to materially work in the physical world. That's because extroverted thinking also represents the concrete reality. So these are the traits in common. The INFP's dual is the ESTJ, and the ISFP's dual is the ENTJ. So just to give you an idea. Let's go to the functions that they do not have in common. So we said that ISFPs are extrovert sensing auxiliary, whereas INFPs are extrovert intuition auxiliaries. The first thing to notice about these two things is that INFPs tend to be dreamers and abstract intellectuals, whereas ISFPs tend to be material, out there, in the moment, and living reality, living the world in the moment in which it is there. Also, INFPs detached from the world and a little bit aloof and abstract, absent-minded, because they live in this realm of intuition, which is a little bit abstract and aloof. Whereas ISFPs tend to be extremely concrete and extremely down to earth. Also, extremely strong willpower. Here I'm going to introduce two concepts about extrovert thinking and extrovert sensing that sound a little bit similar, but if you think about it, they're very different. Extroverted thinking has the ability to fix things in the external world. So extroverted thinking takes something from the external world, and it basically, extroverted thinking is the function that can take something to clip nails and use it for something else, because it basically molds the external environment and lives on the external environment, whereas extrovert sensing is the ability to see the external environment the way it is. So basically, extrovert sensing sees what the external environment is and copies it exactly. So what I'm trying to say here is that INFPs tend to live in a world of unicorns, of fairy tales, fantasy. I personally strongly believe that Tolkien, for example, was an INFP. I type J.K. Rowling INFP, despite a lot of people thinking that she's INTP. But anyway, we're talking about extrovert intuition. So they're basically living in this world in which nothing is real and everything is fantastic. And that's because what INFPs love is what is not there. We know that extrovert intuition is basically the negative of reality. Extrovert intuition sees an empty field and thinks of what they could build there. And here I will add something later on. ISFPs instead have the ability to mold, to take the, not to mold, to take the image of the external environment and reproduce it. So an ISFP makes up for a great uh, molder of the image of the subject. So ISFPs have this ability to take what they like and what they're attracted to from the external world via their extrovert sensing and apply to themselves. So basically, ISFPs are a little bit your Marie Antoinette of the situation. They're kind of noble, and they have this sense of beauty and how to apply beauty to themselves according to what they like and what they're attracted to and they consider attractive. So ISFPs concrete world in front of themselves, and they want things to be real. Whereas INFPs prefer this abstract world in which nothing is real, and the moment in which this abstract world threatens to become real, so they're dreaming something that could become real, the INFP is gonna start feeling like they're a little bit lost. And that's because INFPs are extroverted sensing, they are extroverted sensing vulnerable. So their weak point is extroverted sensing. So everything the ISFP is good at, so basically taking an image from the external world, applying it to themselves, or willpower, the strength to do things, forcing oneself to do something is extroverted sensing. Everything an ISFP is good at, the INFP is going to have as a vulnerable and a weak spot. Similarly, whatever the INFP is good at, so this abstract thinking, seeing the potential in people, for example, that's another thing that extrovert intuition is able to do, seeing the potential in people. ISFPs completely lack the ability to see the potential in people. And that's because they have extrovert intuition vulnerable. So their weak spot is that they do not understand these fantasy lands. They have difficulties understanding fantasy worlds, and they have difficulties with understanding the potential of people around them. This is a trait in common with ISTPs. Both ISFPs and ISTPs have this characteristic that when they believe that someone does not have the potential to achieve a specific goal or to perform a specific task, they're going to do everything in their power to prevent this person from even trying. And that's because for these two types, it is very, very difficult to understand the potential of other people. They also have difficulties understanding their own potential. So basically going to an ISFP and telling them, oh, you have the potential to achieve this and this and this is going to make them extremely uncomfortable. It's going to hurt them exponentially. They are not going to be able to understand the importance of this potential they're being presented with. And that's the weak spot of ISFPs. Whereas INFPs, like I said, have the weak spot that they lack the ability to copy anything. So maybe they have this feeling that they want to paint on a canvas their favorite unicorn, because they wanted to see their favorite unicorn materialized into a canvas. They're going to lack the ability to do that because they will not have the ability to copy what they have in their mind and represent it on the canvas and translate it onto the canvas. So whatever they're going to do is never going to look the same as what they have in their minds. Also, one thing that ISFPs and ESFPs rock at, and here also ESTPs and ISTPs, is if they take a picture of something, like for example, the picture of a small child, and they decide to make it, to draw that child in a bigger scale, they're going to make it exactly exactly equal to how the original picture was. So imagine this small. This is called Leonardo technique, by the way, in painting. For those of you who don't know painting, and so with the Leonardo technique, ESFPs and ISFPs have the ability to reproduce anything via that technique, or even just represent anything that is in their minds. More ISFPs than ESFPs, I reckon, because for ISFPs, X-ray sensing is their creative function. So basically, it's the way by which they influence the world and they create stuff in the world. Whereas INFPs completely lack the ability to do that. And that's because X-ray sensing is their vulnerable function. INFPs are interest sensing tertiary, so it means that their focus is on their internal state, on their health, and on their physical state. One thing that interest sensing tertiary types tend to do is neglect their interest sensing and then go all of a sudden go on periods of trying to figure out what they didn't do right about that matter. I have an INFP friend, and my cousin is an INFP. They live for organic. They live in the realm of organic food. Basically, their life revolves around organic food and teas and herbal teas and all this kind of stuff that alternative medicine, all these things that basically heal the body or put the body in a better condition, or anything that is holistically revolving around the world of organic and and basically sorry, I find it cute. It's fun. It's kind of funny, but that's how they are. ENFP is even worse than that, because they literally seek someone with the ability of doing that for them. So basically, INFPs are these guys that revolve in the leave for organic food. They are organic food, and that's because the area in which they find realization and on which their self-esteem is based is interest sensing. INTPs are known for becoming hobos and going live on a bus, or going live on a RV van, or do that kind of stuff because because they just want to test their interest sensing. That's something that INTPs can do, and so that's INFPs, their interest sensing tertiary function. And then we have ISFPs. ISFPs instead have intuition tertiary function. Intuition tertiary function means that they live for causality. That's why when I made my how to NI video, I dedicated it to ISTPs and ISFPs implicitly. Because ISFPs live for intuition. So basically, seeing chains of cause and effect, the flow through times of things, what led to that specific conclusion, how the person reached to that specific point, and what leads there, and seeing all these things in the chain of time, and how to get and how to achieve that specific thing. So basically, we're talking about extremely artistic and extremely creative types in the real world, with this inner dimension based on intensity of feeling and intensity of intuition, and they base their lives on intuition of time. They they try their best and they do their best to be coherent. Coherence is also an intuition trait. And whenever an ISFP is not being coherent, they are losing their self-esteem. So basically, an ISFP will say, I like popcorn on the 20th of April 2015. You will meet the same ISFP in 2055 and you ask them, do you like popcorn? Maybe they don't like them anymore because they've changed and they've become something different. But since they said they like popcorn, they're gonna like popcorn even if they hate popcorn. And that's because of the combination of introvert feeling with um, introvert intuition. They need this sense of coherence in their lives, and for them this sense of coherence is basically their source of self-esteem. So I think I said basically everything. In ISFP's SI demonstrative function, they tend to devalue and make fun of introvert sensing matters, whereas INFPs are intuition demonstrative, so basically they're going to make fun or reject anything that is intuition related. So this is basically everything I have about the matter. I could add one thing that I said in a previous video. I talked about constructivist versus constructivist and constructivist negativists, and I made the split between constructivist and emotivist and positivist and negativist. So one thing that you can note watching that video is that ISFPs, so ISFPs are constructivists and negativists, whereas INFPs are constructivists but positivists. So both live in this depth of emotions, bask in their emotions and in their feelings, and but ISFPs, negativists, INFPs, positivists. So ISFPs see everything that is not there and everything that is gonna hurt to them. So kind of depressive and a little bit gloomy. We know that the stereotypical artist tends to be a little bit gloomy. INFPs instead basking in their emotions, looking at everything that is there to make them happy. So everything that makes them happy, basically they stick in their head, they get stuck in their head and only think about this organic food slash unicorn like fantasy worlds, and then go buy their their organic food, and they have these meetings with where everybody's meditating and that kind of stuff. So that's basically INFP versus ISFP. I hope it helped, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.